Dear all, welcome to yet another exciting episode of PhD PDF Scholarship Podcast. In today's episode, we are thrilled to have Dr. Kaidi Wu, an accomplished psychologist and coach, as our guest. We will be exploring non-traditional career paths after completing PhD, focusing on transferable skills, overcoming challenges, and navigating a fulfilling career outside academia or industry. Join us as we discuss how PhD holders can pursue a meaningful career beyond traditional settings. So, before we dive deep into the discussion, our listeners would be interested to know about you and about your background. So, the floor is yours.
All right, cool. Hi, I'm Kaidi. I'm currently a content creator and coach. I consider myself a psychologist, still an academic at heart. I got my PhD in social psychology from the University of Michigan. Before that, I got my degree in music performance in piano, also from the University of Michigan. After that, I went to UCSD, Rady School of Management, for my postdoc. After that, I went to work for a couple of big tech companies. After that, I wanted to do something new, and I wanted to look at the world beyond academia and industry, which is what a lot of academics went if they did not go into academia. Yeah, I'm having a blast. So this is my path so far.
Hi, Dr. Kaidi. I just wanted to ask you, because you told me that you did your PhD, so just wanted to check with you, what are the transferable skills that you believe could be something important that you found most important when you transition from academia to the non-traditional path? Can you just enlighten me a little bit about that?
So what are the transferable skills, expertise?
Sure.
Yeah, that is a very good question. It's a very typical question, and it's a very large question. And I think before I answer that question, the larger question is, what do you want to transfer your skills to? What do you want to market your skills to? When we think about an academic transplant going into industry, one good way of thinking about it is to think about yourself as a product. So you yourself are an asset. Now you need to market this product to whoever, the customer, the client, and these are the companies, these are universities. What are the assets that you have? The answer to that is, what are the assets that they value? So if a psychologist wants to go into UX, the marketing is not going to be great if they say, oh, I did so-and-so research on this theory, and then I published in whatever journal, because industry doesn't care. Industry cares that you have interviewing skills, you have data analytical skills, and it cares about impact. What are the impacts that you've had on product, on teams, on stakeholders? This is a very, at the lower level, answering your question of how do you market your skills. It's whatever that they want. And then you look at whatever you have here, and then you package it, or you have to upskill at some point, and then you make yourself marketable. Basically, how do you sell? How do you market? On the larger level, everything in life is sales. Everything in life is marketing. If you're a content creator, you're selling yourself as a content creator. All the content that you produce, everything you write, it's selling. When I show up to a podcast or a new person, the way I dress, the accent that I have, that is selling. That is signaling to you, even non-verbally, whatever skill that I have may be of use to you, may be of value to you. So if you think about that on a larger scale, even beyond industry, if I want to do something that I'm passionate about, or if I want to make $10 million, or if I want to service a local community, I want to be a person of respect from the people that I respect, then you look at what do they really want, and what are the skills that I have, and how can I partner up with them, rather than how can I beg for a job, how can I bend over backward to satisfy whatever the requirements that they posted on LinkedIn. Rather, how do I partner with them so that we can achieve our goals together, whatever your goals may be for your career, whatever their goals may be for their career. So So that's what I will say on the two different levels of answering kind of marketable or transferable skills for an academic.
Sorry, sure. So, if I got you correctly, you're saying more actionable logics and not just words, and you have to just show a do approach rather than approach just to please whatever the requirements are. If I got it correct.
Yes. So let me expand on that point a little bit more. So the first way I talked about the metaphor of kind of thinking about yourself as a product, but the second way is thinking about yourself as the CEO of your own career. So as a CEO of my own career, where do I want this to be? I'm steering the ship of myself. Where do I want to go in this treacherous water, in this saturated marketplace, in this competitive landscape of academia and now industry with the mass layoffs that are going on? What do I want? What is the life that I want to live? If there's a job at Google that gives me the 9-to-5 lifestyle, if I want a 9-to-5 lifestyle, gives me the salary, gives me the whatever components that I really love doing, then fantastic. If it's not for me, then I'll pick something else, or I'll create a path of my own path somebody has walked, but I have a variation of it that I personally will enjoy. Every which way you think, you're thinking, what do I want first? And then you say, how can I, if I work with someone, how does that benefit them? Instead of them benefiting me, how do I benefit them? What can I do to you? What can I contribute to your company? Ironically, these are the same questions people ask in interviews. And if I think from this point of view, I'm taking charge of my own career, then the answers are genuine. The answers are, I can say that authentically. I can say that confidently, that I want to do data analyses for you. I want to do UX research for you because I get something out of it too, because it's in alignment with what I want to achieve in my career. Then you can go in a depth in what are the actionable steps, what are the specific impact that I'm going to make on your team, because our visions are aligned. Now, in the opposite, in contrast of what you were saying, which is the typical way a lot of job seekers, not just academics, go looking for a job, is they go to school and then they're like, oh shit, I need a job. And then they go on LinkedIn and they see, what are the jobs available? What do the job titles mean? These are very important questions. But then you're positioning yourself as, I need a job, give me security, give me money. And no company wants to hire someone where they give them all the benefits and they're getting nothing in return, or they're getting a bare minimum worker, all the lazy girl boss, all this trending stuff on social media. Then companies are wondering, what are we getting? Why are we hiring you? And it's very hard to answer that question unless you do the upfront work of, how does this align with the life that I have envisioned for myself?
Sure. Thanks a lot. So I just call Dave to go ahead carry on the session.
Hi, can you please describe the biggest challenge you faced when you transited from this academia to your non-academic role, and how you overcome these challenges?
Yeah. So I transitioned from academia first to industry. When academics, very funny when you say industry, because to the outside world, they don't know, they're like, industry is very big. But to academics, most people say industry, they mean tech. They mean very small, Google, yes. Facebook, the companies, right? That pay very supposedly has a good life balance and security, which is going down the drain right now. So I transitioned there. Then it wasn't what I wanted. So I would say the biggest challenge that I faced was the challenge that a lot of people face, which is, how do I do what I love while still making a living? There's all this conversation around financial independence, right? So that's, how do I get the money now, even though I suffer, and then I can do what I want? And then there's the starving artists, which I'm very close to LA. So I see, all the filmmakers, the dancers, the artists the musicians, they're like, oh, I'm starting living with my parents, but I'm doing the thing that I love. It's a constant struggle throughout history. Artists, they have patrons that dictate what art that they create. Dancers, choreographers. It's the same problem that we have faced over and over. So for me, I have come to this struggle point at multiple points of my career. I wanted to do piano. So I went to school for piano knowing that it won't have a lot of money. But I was like, okay, an academic, financial security, nope. I graduated into the pandemic, not that. But at each step, I think the most important question is to start with, what do I enjoy doing? Not necessarily what you're passionate about doing, but what do I really enjoy? The intrinsic curiosity, something that goes, oh my God, I want to learn, I want to know more. And that is going to keep you going in the face of hardship. You just want to do it for the sake of doing it. If you enjoy doing something and if you keep doing it, you have to be really dumb to be incompetent at it, right? So you love what you do, and the competence comes with years of practice with you keeping doing what you do. And the third bubble I always talk about is market. How do you market that? Anything is marketable. You just need to articulate the value to an audience that you can find, which is everyone who has an internet nowadays. The intersection of these three bubbles is what a lot of people call a dream career, is the solution to the challenge a lot of people have, which is do something that you love, making a living because you're very good at it. And not that many people are good at it, and people want what you have. I don't think I have the solution, the perfect solution to my own life, to other people's life, because life changes all the time. What you want changes all the time. So what you can do is to always say, what do I want at this moment in time? And how do I make the best of it? When I went to industry, I think the biggest challenge is I know that wasn't what I wanted. Like in my heart of heart, I was like, why? And when I was working for a dating app, I was just like, you don't know anything about dating. And all these people have never used a dating app. And I was just like, why do you want to, you are supposed to help people find love, but you're making money off of, making men more desperate. So there are a lot of things ethically and intellectually that go against what I truly stand for. And what I realized was, you don't know who you are and what you stand for until you are in it, until you actually face the challenge. You make the choice. It doesn't matter if it's a right or wrong choice. And then you find out who you are through your actions. You develop more confidence by doing first, and then you can take the next step. So that's I would say what the biggest challenge was, both strategically and also mentally. It was very hard on your mental health when you're trying to figure, oh my God, I hate this. This is not who I am. And then you have to keep doing it. But to overcome it is to be brutally honest with what you actually love to do.
Yes, so like taking the decision is itself challenging. Mentally taking the decision is challenging, and then we have to figure it out how to overcome it and what actually I want it, and we have to go towards that direction. That's the message. Okay,
Yeah.
Annie, if you wish, next question.
Sure.
Yeah. Were there any misconceptions you had about non-academic careers before making the transition, and how did the reality differ from your expectations?
Yeah. So I would not say it's a misperception, because I think I was pretty accurate. So here's the thing about industry, the academia to industry. When I transitioned, TikTok has everything, like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. People are sharing their stories, and I think it was the middle of the pandemic where these videos just exploded. People are very candidly, just a camera to their face, all the selfie style video, and they're broadcasting their layoffs. They're broadcasting, hey, here how I was fired, and I saw the tears, and I saw the pain, and I saw how brutal the job market was and how disposable workers can be. And I grew up in a culture, I grew up in China, and I growing up, I said to myself, I'm not going to be a cubicle worker. I'm not going to be a 9 to 5. And at the time, there was no tech, there was no Facebook, but it was just the version of it. It was like banking or some kind of corporation. And I just hated it because I hated the mindlessness, the purposelessness. If you love it, great. If you don't love it, a lot of people do it just for the sake of prestige. And China, and with a lot of Asian countries, is it's called a face culture in cultural psychology. And a face culture, as opposed to a dignity culture, which is the Western American style culture, is that your self-worth is contingent on other people's approval. So it's if you get a job at a big company, or if you're from Harvard, your parents, your society, your teachers, suddenly you have a lot of you are conferred the level of prestige that you otherwise can't get. As opposed to, if I do something, I just believe in I don't care. I went to a state school and that's fine for me. So you have a lot of more of the intrinsic level of self-worth. I do what I want. I believe in myself type of ragged individualism in America. In China, it's the opposite, and it's heightened. It's very hierarchical. And it makes for, respect in this community a lot more important than your individual achievement. Now, either way is fine. Neither culture is superior to another. But for me personally, that was not my style. I wanted to do something that I love to do. Doesn't matter what other people think. And industry for me, I would not say it's a misperception, but my perception of it is that a lot of people want to become doctors, lawyers, at the time, the stereotypical Asian professions, for the sake of the name, the sake of the prestige, for the sake of this is the path that have been carved out before I walked. Now I walk on it, I get all the, the good job from my aunties. I hated that. And I was like, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to be a pianist. And I came to America to do that. And piano, it was a stand-in, I loved it, but it was something that I cherished. I just really loved to my heart. For my PhD, it's the same thing. All the books that I was reading, all the thoughts that I was having, the conversations I was having with people, it spoke to who I was and still who I am as a person. So when I went to industry, I had this little voice at the back of my mind, and I was just like, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? What if I'm miserable? What if I'm one of those TikTok girls, And then I was talking to all these academics, but ironically, a lot of them were so miserable in academia, which has its own sets of problems, very distinct from industry, but problems nevertheless systemic, at the systemic level, that to them, industry is a dream. It's like, oh, I don't have to work 24 hours anymore. I don't have an advisor breathing down my neck. There are more jobs than in academia. Kind of the more surface level, the structural problems that they got resolved in academia. So they accepted a lot of the things that I would not accept in industry. And I went, okay, if it works for them, maybe it will work for me. Maybe, it was just, who knows? Let's take a look. So I went, and I was miserable. And so I would not say it's a misperception, but I will say my perceptions were on some level confirmed that it's just not a path for me. I can, in fact, create my own path in 2024 in a very unique content economy, making a lot more money than any of these traditional paths, industry being one of them.
Wonderful, and thank you for sharing that insight. And say, for example, for a research aspirant, like he got into the PhD, and in the middle of the PhD, like he's thinking that this is not the place where I am supposed to be, or like at the end of the PhD, like I don't want to pursue a career in the field that I have already gained an expertise on, which means he or she has to invest a lot of time in developing another skill for them to get into a different platform, right? So as an aspirant, like who may not be in a good financial situation, like how should we strategize, or how can they strategize themselves to see in a place where they want themselves to be on, or to be experimented on? How can we think in that way, or what can be the suggestion we can give to those students or aspirants? What do you think?
Yeah, so this is you mean students in the middle of their PhD program?
Yeah,
They
middle
don't
or
wanna do
yeah,
it.
yeah, middle or like towards the end, or yeah, they realize it is not their cup of coffee. They want to switch to somewhere.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're in the middle, depends on how far along and how
Yeah.
flexible your program is. I know people from my own program. I know people they PhD'd out in 3 years
Okay.
because they got a job. I know people who mastered out. You know, they did 2 years, they can get a master out of it. Anything you can get out of the years that you've spent, I would get it, practically speaking. Leaving is very hard for anyone. Leaving, not just even after you've had a PhD, leaving academia is very, very hard. Sunk cost is very real. You spend so much time on the thing, on the topic, right? Your identity. There is no not tying. It's like when people talk about like your work is not your identity, your PhD is not your identity. It's as if, you know, I was thinking about all these conversations around like casual a relationship. There's no such thing as casual. Like you're hooking up, but there's no such thing as casual. Same thing with, you can't do work, spend all this time and energy on something, even if it's something that you don't like, without your identity being a part of it, because you are the embodiment of all of that energy that went into whatever field that may be. So validation, it's very hard, even before you, even for people who have had PhDs. Now it's extra hard if you're in the middle of it because you spent time.
Indeed.
But anytime you can leave. There is no, you know, we have this conception of, okay, then if I'm miserable, then I will just be miserable for 5 years, then I'm done, or whatever the year is in different countries other than the United States. That is not true. Anytime you spend past the point of, you know, this is not for you, there's a massive opportunity cost that comes with it. The tears, the pain, the having to drudge through all of that misery that you know that you don't like, all of that time, this is the thing that you can control. And if you are knowingly doing something that you know you don't like, we'd have to be crazy to be doing that, right? So the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, having, you know, it's going to result in the same outcome, which is your unhappiness. So I would say there is nothing wrong with leaving, but the mental challenge is probably harder than the practical strategies of how do you get yourself out of the situation, and then where do you go? A lot of people have trouble leaving because it feels like falling off a cliff. It feels like where's the destination? If you know where you are leaving to, it makes it a lot easier to leave from. Then it becomes the bigger questions, which is, who am I? What life do I want to live? Who do I want to work with? Where do I want to be on this earth? Who am I as a person, right? These are the bigger questions, the existential questions that people, not just academics, face at every single point of their career. Very interestingly, it's also something that comes up at junctures of different careers. So if a person decides to leave their PhD in the middle of it, that is a juncture. It's almost like a rupture, you know, there's some interruption. If a person got their PhD but couldn't find a job, that's a juncture. Layoffs, juncture. Tenure track, when you got tenure or when you didn't get tenure or tenure. So all these accomplishments, it's usually followed by some kind of unease, right? Because something is changing. But these junctures are very, very exciting points. These are transformational points where it can catapult you to new heights. And I would leverage these energies to think about the big questions that you may otherwise not have the time to think when you're just doing the busy work, trying to get to where you are. And then really take the time to ask the hard questions for yourself.
That's a wonderful suggestion. Yeah, it's always good to take some time off, spend some time with yourself, and then like make a plan. What is something that I can be happy or I can enjoy, while I can earn something for the stability as well. Thank you. Yeah, that brings to the next question.
So during this transition, what the strategy you used, or what was the resources that was helpful to you for doing these transitions? Like what you have done multiple transitions, so what resources you used, or what was your strategies that helped you to do this transition, so that if you explain it a little bit more, then we can also try to follow the path. That's why the resources or your strategies that will be helpful for us if you explain a little bit more.
Yeah. So resources, as with anyone, I went to the typical ones: YouTube, Google. Not coincidentally, these are also the resources that others use, right? So I'm on the other side now. If I'm a coach, I want to see where are my leads coming from, lead gen, and where are people searching? And not surprisingly, Google and YouTube. LinkedIn is a good one as well for free. Other than that, like blogs, mediums, that like people do that through Google search. LinkedIn is great for networking with people who have been through your path, who are 1 to 2 steps ahead of you. LinkedIn is also good for mentors. So I would say free resources. YouTube is a good one. Doesn't have everything, but it has some of the in-depth, like interview prep or UX, data science, some of the live coding questions. Lead code, there are specific resources you can go off of. Once you watch these videos, they're pretty explanatory. Google leads you to a lot of the good articles. They're a lot more in-depth. In general, text more so than video, but they are good in terms of pointing you in the right direction. That's one. The two is the people. How do you leverage human resources? So the people in terms of the buddies, who are the people who are also job searching or who have just gotten a job. These are the people who have walked the path that you walked. So if you talk to them, I always say do informational interviews with people who are 1 to 2 steps ahead of you. You basically learn all of their mistakes in 20 minutes that take them 2 years to learn. So you're basically extracting the gold from every single person's experiences, people whose experiences are comparable to yours. In that human resource kind of bubble, there's a second part, which is coaching, which I highly advocate for. I've had many good coaches in all areas: life coaching, dating coaching, career coaching, health, stretch coaching, dance coaching. The good thing with a coach is you're not just relying on people's disparate experiences. When you're talking to people or you're looking at resources for free online, they're not targeted at you. The people who create a lot of programs or they write blogs, they usually have a target audience in mind. And that target audience is who is the most profitable to sell my program to, so there's a lot of business and marketing decisions that went into the messaging and therefore the advice that they're giving. So if you're not that demographic, or even if you are, but you're not looking to invest in whatever program that they have, the message may not be for you. And then it could be harmful for you, in fact. For people who are the buddies, they are very good for accountability, but they're not very good for pointing you in directions, because you don't know when you're inside the maze. It's very hard to see unless you're on the outside. A coach, a mentor, an advisor, whatever that is. So in academia, that could be an advisor. In industry, that could be an industry leader, person who has been on the hiring end, or a person who has gone through the exact transition that you're going through, or a coach who has experience with multiple clients or who themselves have gone through similar things. They can then look at what you need the most at this juncture and then what you need to do. The right advice at the right time, it will save you so much headache as opposed to you trying to figure out everything on your own. So so to recap, there's the LinkedIn, YouTube, free resources on Google. Instagram, there's some corporate stuff, but less about academia, like TikTok and Instagram, more about 9 to 5 than academia kind of transition type of resources. 2 is leverage your buddies, building a community network using LinkedIn online or offline. And then 3 is work with a coach if you can afford it.
Yes, thanks for explaining it in details. It's more clear to us now. So
as a psychologist by education and a coach by choice. So, what are the common questions that you generally face from PhD students when they start thinking to leave academia? And what are the common advices that you generally give them to achieve this a fulfilling career? A fulfilling career, sorry. So yeah, that's a little bit that I want to you to ponder about, like give enlightenment about.
Yeah, a lot of barriers are psychological. In fact, I would say almost all barriers are psychological. If you overcome your mindset, you can do a lot of things. There are a couple of big barriers. Loss of identity. I am an academic. When I leave, I'm no longer an academic. It's not true. You can still be an academic outside of academia. Second is what do I do? Where do I go? I need money. I need food. I need rent, right? So this is the typical mindset of people who are already starting their transitioning to industry. And then they come to me, they say, I just need a job. I don't give a shit about dreams. I need a job right now. So you need some kind of legs under the table for you to have the security and foundation to then think about what do I want. A couple other things, there's the mental health, right? So there's the mental health in terms of the struggles that you have suffered in academia, be it your advisor, the system, the injustice, harassment, the unfair treatment, the bureaucracy, none of which has to do with research, which you love. A lot of people love the research that you do. In fact, I've not talked to a single person who's like, I fucking hate my research and I just want to leave. And these people usually they leave pretty fast. They don't need the coaching. But I still want to do research. What do I do? In these cases, it's very complex because if you transplant that person to industry that has nothing to do with the intellectual rigor that they so cherish, they're going to have a miserable time, because then you'd be doing everything that you don't like in academia. All of that bureaucracy, you'll have that again. The unfair treatment, yes, plenty of politics in corporate. So I would say those are a couple of barriers that I see in terms of how to overcome them. There are the things that we can control in life, and then there's the things we can't control. We want to minimize the time on the things that we can't control. A lot of the mental resilience and success comes from the ability to let the past go. So a lot of people come to me with, oh, my advisor is abusive, or I can't stay in this, like the job market. There's just no position. If I keep going at it for the next 5-10 years, maybe I will have a job. But the chance is so minimal that do I want to gamble my life, all of that. So you have to look at the situation realistically and live in the world that is not the world we want it to be. The world that was 5 years ago where the job market was much better than the job market that we have now. And say, if I were to make a decision today, what decision will I make, given the things that I can control? If you think that way, it becomes a lot easier, because then we don't fret about the stuff that we can't do anything about, like the crap job market, right? We don't fret about the things that's going to hold us back, or we have less regret for the decisions that we make, given the information we have at this time. This usually helps people move forward. A lot of people get stuck, or they go get another PhD, they go get another MBA. Unnecessary. You have all the skills that you need. We need to just take the information that we have and then take one step forward. And then you'll find out if you like it or not. In my case, I hated industry, and that catapults me to the next step, right? So there's always forward movement. There's a quote I remember from I forgot if it's Alex Hormozy or Justin Welsh, one of the solopreneur entrepreneurs. And they said, by the time other people are done imagining and thinking about all the scenarios, I have made 10 mistakes already. I have taken 20 steps, made 10 mistakes, and I've learned from all of them. That's why you're able to go, much farther ahead. I tend to be less aggressive in terms of I don't share that mentality, but I think there's a lot of truth in that you just need to walk forward and overcoming the psychological barrier of moving forward, so you can see for yourself, like you're doing the experiment for yourself, what is best for me and what do I not like.
So if I got you correctly, you're saying that we should overcome the imposter syndrome as it's called in academia, and leave the baggage of the past, and try and grow on what you have in hand at the present, and not be burdened by what has happened in the past. If I got it correctly.
Yes, easy to say, hard to do.
That's
Okay. So from a PhD graduate, say how can the PhD graduate balance their professional passion and personal, or else like personal goals and the professional passion when considering careers outside the traditional academic and industrial settings?
So ideally, I would want my work to be my passion. And I think that statement has gotten so much upset for some reason nowadays because of this whole passion debate. There's professor at Harvard who studies passion, and then there's Cal Newport as well, the author at he's at Georgetown. He's a computer science professor, wrote a couple of books. When he wrote a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You, and then he wrote a lot about passion, in particular against passion. When you look at the historical trajectory of the word passion, the concept of personal passion, or like having passion with your work, people often refer to Steve Jobs, but it's a couple decades earlier when passion first rose to prominence, the discourse around like 1950s, 1970s. But later on, Steve Jobs was one of the people who said, if you love what you do, you don't have to work a day in your life, because you're just, you're doing what you love. And that goes back to the beginning of our discussion, which is, how do I do what I love? And that's actually going to be a utopian world where people are genuinely doing work that they enjoy, so that they're maximizing their talent in a particular area that contributes to society in whatever shape or form. And then you have people actually putting the work because they want to put in the work, right? As opposed to a society where people are sleepwalking through their jobs and they hate their jobs and they go on TikTok to vent about how much they hate it, and then they go become TikTokers. So ideally, you want what you do at least to enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy what you do at this moment, which is a lot of people, and which is a lot of academics who transition to industry, then you have to question, where do I want to go? And is what I'm doing right now getting me there? If neither of these are true, then we really have to be crazy. If I'm doing something that I hate, that doesn't get me to where I want to go, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I have had a lot of people who are non-academics who just hated their 9 to 5, but the money's good enough, but I have to eat, I have to, and then they get stuck. So the question then becomes, if I want to, where do I want to go, and how do I close the gap? And if what I'm doing is serving that, what do I need to do instead? Even if it doesn't, even it may not be my passion, it may not be something that I'm completely competent at, or it may not be something that's highly paid, then how do I get to the place that satisfies one of the things that I really care about? So I think that's the starting point for that. There's other schools of thoughts in terms of, like the people who say, oh, work-life balance, or I'm just doing this for a paycheck so that I get to enjoy. And to that, there's a blog called financialsamurai.com. He's I think he's an Asian guy who just kind of questioned and he said, if you break it down, and my own coach too, they have a blog on, if you work 8 hours a day and then you have to sleep 8 hours a day, this is 8 hours you have left over. And then you subtract the chores, the time you watch Netflix, time you spend you only have just 1 hour left, for your hobby and stuff. And I was like, that's such a miserable way of living, 8 hours a day on the things that you don't want to do. And I was like, no, I don't want to spend a second of the day on the things that I don't want to do. So I would say, always be very conscious and authentic in the thing that you do. It's what you do. All the things around, the job versus a career versus, people are making the differentiations, is to justify, how do I trade my time for money for the things I don't want to do? And what if you question, what if I don't want to do that? What if I want to start with the point that I just want to do what I do, and then reverse engineer, how do I make it happen, make my passion to make a living for me, make other people, employers, the things that become opportunities that I attract, that make my career happen, whatever career that I find attractive.
Wonderful. So if I consolidate everything what you said, like it should be like we should be honest to ourselves, then like we have to be persistent, we have to be patient, and we should be ready to upskill ourselves during the time, like where we want to see ourselves in the future.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm moving to the next questions. How has the definition impact evolved since you left academia and moved to your current role? The term impact, I think it's not a static term, what we used to think in academia. So how you think about the term or the definition of impact when you moved from academia to your current role?
Impact is a very loaded word. I did not like that word. Same way I did not like marketable skills. It's very corporate. When corporate America talks about impact, it's talking about money. It's talking about profit. And that is the purpose of a corporation, which is to generate profits, for the shareholders. Money is a very dirty word, especially for academics. And we don't like to think that way. So a lot of the language that you see around impact is, how do I generate X, like number of increase in engagement and all these terms, which fair. But I often think about impact in terms of what is the contribution, what minds have you changed? What have you done to this world that even if you brought joy to yourself, maybe you brought joy to other people, something that nourishes you, the energy that generates for yourself, it will do some good to the world. But if you are miserable at your job, it's going to have an outsized impact to your colleagues. It's they're bearing the burden of the things that you don't want to do, or maybe you said something nasty to a person because you're just miserable in your job. All of that is impact. Now, impacting academia is very, very different from impacting industry. And this is what a lot of people get wrong when they transition. We think about impact, we think about the product, the end product. So for academics, it is your publications. It is how many presentations, it's basically your CV. What's the thing, the tangible lines that you can list on your CV? What is the reputation, the impact factor, the journal rankings, the outputs that you have produced. I, however, would like to think about impact in a broader sense. And this, when you look beyond academia and industry, when you look at artists, when you look at comedians, filmmakers, what impact are they having? And I was remembering Elizabeth Gilbert. She has a book also on big magic. She was also talking about passion. And she was talking about how a lot of writers ask, I'm not driving a bus. I'm not doing heart surgery. I'm not teaching kids. What impact am I having? I'm not just wasting time writing a book no one wants to read. And even people want to read. What impact did I have on people? They just read it for their pastime. Even if they love the work, what am I doing? And then she likened writing to just making little jewels because they're beautiful. That's it. And dancers, musicians, they engage in this art form, basically just repetition of movements. For no reason, because it's joyful, because music intrinsically is joyful, artwork is joyful. And you think about a lot of research questions from the outside, people are like, why are you studying 19th century this thing in this niche? People will look at my research and like, what is this? Why is this so in-depth and nobody cares about, on the kind of monetary level, somebody can say, oh, you don't know, because of all these discoveries, these theoretical things and these discoveries, they are not made because somebody wants to make money, somebody wants to make an impact in an area. They're usually made because somebody had an idea that has nothing to do with anything, and they just think, oh, it's interesting, or they connected dots among ideas, and suddenly it became this thing that changes humanity. A lot of discoveries were made that way. Academy is still intact because people still believe in innovation, innovative ideas that you may not have immediate reward, but it benefits humanity in the long run. But the second point of impact is what I really wanted to make, which is impact isn't money alone. When I look at Trevor Noah, he makes a joke about race. When I look at Ali Wong, she makes a joke about culture, right? They are not thinking, I'm gonna change, I'm gonna better the Asian American community, I'm gonna better the African American community. They're not. They're just trying to make people laugh. But if you make somebody laugh, they can suddenly see your point of view. You can't have an enemy where the enemy laughs at your jokes, because then they get you. And if you can make that happen, that is so powerful. That's just comedy. And you think filmmakers, when they talk about sexual harassment without telling you what to do, they just show you, here's what's going on. And that changes minds and hearts. Me too. A lot of it comes from film. A lot of it comes from actresses speaking out. And you look at writing, one of the most powerful mediums. All of these, if you just ask, what is your impact? Well, the impact really, you can't boil it down to anything, any metric, any business metrics, but they change so many minds and hearts. And I would say that makes a lot bigger impact than like a corporate, DEI training that I personally find to be extremely not impactful. So that's what I will say. And anything you do, if you're doing it because you want to do it, because you love doing it, because it nourishes you, I guarantee it will have a positive impact on your community.
Okay, but Kaidi is now very much clear to us, and we will also rethink about the term impact from now in our own way, how our work or our life is impacting on other person's life, work, or society. So we will rethink about it. Okay, thanks for explaining it more.
After that heavy discussion on impact, now I just want to mellow down a little bit. I just want to put it down, like just looking back at your PhD now, what different steps or changes you would have tried to take, or skills that you might have, or let's say changes that you might have taken to prepare yourself for current role. Just one, the last half of your PhD I know was in pandemic. Except of changing that, what change will you like to do?
Oh, what change would I want to do?
Yeah, during your PhD. Just that, not changing the last half of your PhD was in pandemic, I know that. Except that what changed.
I would not change anything. And I say this, I hate this answer because I've asked this question at every single informational interview and every single actual interview. Like if you look back at your life, what would you change? Or would you have taken a different step? It is impossible, because the way you are right now, the iteration, like you go through different iterations of you like a snake shedding skin. And the person that I am today, I wouldn't be if I haven't gone through that iteration, if I hadn't gone through that step. So I can look back and say, oh, I wish I were dancing for a lot more years, so now I can be a pro dancer. Or I wish I knew Facebook, Google, they were going to be a thing, so I wouldn't have wasted time doing a PhD. But none of that is true, because I got everything I wanted in my PhD. everything that, the books that I had time to read because of the PhD, all my selfish, I want to read all these books for free. And then the conversations that I like to have, and I can't fathom a place where it's like a PhD inside of your cocoon, and then you're having these, intellectual convos, almost like the podcaster bros, where they have the funds to have these intellectual conversations. PhDs, they actually give you money so that you can think about these random questions. And I think that's such a luxury and a privilege that you can hardly find any environment, professional environments like that, unless it's a PhD. Not even in like law, medicine, but in a PhD, you can actually have time to think, which I think is very, very rare. If I were to change anything, I wouldn't change anything, and I think all of that is valid, all of that. I also think if I were to change something so that I can get to that, there's an assumption behind that, which is there's one career path, or there's the summit. Where do I want to go? And anything that's a deviation is kind of wasted. So if I can go back and I can, then the path will be much smoother. But I don't believe in that assumption anymore. And I say that because there's a guy named Money Mustache, Mr. Money Mustache. He's one of the forerunners of the financial independence, retire early, FIRE movement. And he retired before age 30. And he's like, okay, I'm done. Like, my career is done. The summit has been achieved. And what do I do now? And a lot of entrepreneurs have this panic moment where they said, I'm going to accomplish this big thing. And after that, very anticlimactic. Similar to when I got my PhD, pandemic, I didn't get hooded or anything. It was like nothing, everybody's gone. So my PhD felt like, it doesn't, the accomplishment didn't feel real. But then what do you do? What is the next step? And he went into like who I am as a person once it's done. And then he discovered I can be anything. I can go pick another career. I can go pick another career and another career, and you don't even have to be really good at it. And you also think this career that I really care about today, I don't have to be number one. I may be at the top of the field. I may have a community of people who are really good, passionate about what they do, but I don't have to be the number one at it. All these other careers, I can do them at the same time, or I can do this for a while and then I can do something else. All of that is who you are. Any iterations that you have, any variations of yourself, the diversity of aspects of yourself, that's who you are. And that's a kinder and much gentler way of looking at success. People who are very ambitious looking at success rather than there's a singular path, there's a socially approved, recognizable path that you have to achieve that puts a lot of pressure. Unnecessary, and that gives you a lot of stress.
That's the fresh and a different approach and a different school of thought. I have been fond about that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, thank you. Let's carry on with the next question.
Indeed, I agree with Anirudh's points. For the first time, I'm also listening to someone who says, I accept what it was, and it is because of that how I am right now. Mm-hmm. So I think, that's a fresh perspective as what Anirudh said. I really appreciate you for that. And maybe as we end towards this podcast, one final question would be, I see that you also provide one-to-one coaching sessions for the aspirants and someone who wants to switch to a non-traditional paths. So can you just tell about that? Like, what do you do, and like how should the aspirants, if they want to connect with you, like what is the way? And about a summary about your activities so that our group members can also connect with you. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, but they can find me on LinkedIn, all the career information, coaching information. Right now, I do one-on-one, very in-depth. I look at where you are in your career and I work with you tailored, step by step. We develop a system to get to where you want to go, have the clarity of where you want to go, and then how do you get there, whatever field that you want to transition to. I'm going to walk through alongside you step by step. If they want to learn more, in the future, I'm going to develop a program, a coaching program. So you have more of a community, you have a group, you have a curriculum. So that's in the works. Be on the lookout for that. Other than that, just I post daily on LinkedIn, career advice, career tips. I post threads on Twitter as well, research-based, career-based. So you can find me on all these platforms.
Wonderful. So that brings us to the end of this podcast. Dave can conclude, and then.
Yes, so it was a very nice conversation to talk with you, Kaidi, and other members also. We are enlightened, and our perspective has also changed and enlightened. And we are very much thankful to you for joining us, sharing your thought with us, as well as when it will be online, it will be benefited. It will be benefited for many students, and particularly those who are struggling in their career, be it in PhD or in industry or somewhere else. Because many in the academia, they just think like that they will switch to the industry and their all problems will be gone. I know many of my friends or many who are in academia, they are struggling. They simply think if they go to the industry, their all problems are gone. But they have to think or rethink what they exactly want to do, and then proceed to the career. And your advice or your opinion in this domain is very diverse. So whatever you shared in this interview or this conversation will help them a lot, and I am thankful, and we are also thankful from this community to you. And I hope many students will be connected to you with their problems, and we will be very much happy if you can help them to get rid of their problems and be established in their life. It's very crucial. So okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for creating this opportunity to talk about these issues, and I really appreciate that. And with the outreach, yes, I hope this is helpful for people. And I think one of the thing is you feel very alone. There's this one more thing. Steven Pinker, I remember he had a research on private knowledge versus shared knowledge versus common knowledge. So shared knowledge, common knowledge is I know this, you know this, you know this. We all know the emperor's naked, but nobody knows everybody else knows the emperor's naked. So you are having this very common experience, but you think you're alone in this. And I think that's how a lot of academics have felt, or even academics who went to industry. Then they go online and then you see all these, academia sucks, go to industry. What if you're alone and miserable in industry, But having podcasts like this and having conversations and having online conversations, it makes people think, oh my God, the kid is pointing out emperor's naked, and suddenly shared common knowledge became shared knowledge. And now everybody knows everybody else is having the same kind of experience, and then you can build on each other and you can help each other. So I think it's really crucial and helpful.